name is Jason. That's Angelo.
Hey, Jason.
Our names are up there as well in case you forget. We are founders of HelloSugoi, which is an event ticketing platform leveraging smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain. And this is called Real World Blockchain. This is a community event to talk about use cases for Ethereum technology, or what's now being called the new internet, which I think is a fair abstraction for kind of a decentralized internet that's being built out. And our platform utilizes some of this technology. Tonight we're going to talk about applications in the music industry, which will make a lot of sense once we start kind of diving into what this tech can do. So without further ado, let's get over here. So I have a little agenda. I'm going to talk about some personal experience because I am a musician and this directly affects my career that I've had so far. We'll talk briefly about what blockchain is for those of you that are unfamiliar with the technology, how it works, what's Ethereum, what's a smart contract, and then some solutions for the music industry, and then an open discussion at the end. At any point, please feel free to interrupt me if you guys have questions about some of the stuff that we're talking about. I just don't want it to be me up here talking the whole time. That'd be just boring. So please feel free to engage. Cool. So that's some of the stuff that I've done. I'm a songwriter at BMG, which is a publishing company. And I also release music as Lost Midas on the True Thoughts label. They're based out of Brighton in the UK. Both really amazing companies. I've done projects for Kalispell and Zadie Gray, and these are a number of TV shows that my music has appeared in. Sweet. So I've been both an independent artist and on a label. And just to preface, just to be clear about that, I've had a really wonderful experience being on a label, so I don't want this to be like, oh, screw the music industry, because it's not about that. I've largely had a positive experience being signed to a label, more so than negative experiences. I might not be the only one, of course, with that in mind. Some people perhaps have had worse experiences, but mine overall has been pretty positive. I'd say likely better than being an independent artist. What we'll talk about tonight is a difference in how the system could be structured and how artists get paid. That certainly could become better, or I want to say different, because better is subjective. Right now, for the fan, it's never been better as a listener, right? We're in a listener's utopia.
Everything's free.
Everything's free, and there's really no going back. And we have mobile devices with access to, I don't know how many songs are in the Spotify repository. I think it's like 50 million songs that we all get for $10 a month, or really free if you don't mind advertising. So that, we can keep that the same. It's not going to get it really any better for the fan. For the label or publisher or pro, that's performance rights organization. They're the ones who collect royalties from radio play or licensing. I'm not quite sure if this system is better for them or not. We'll kind of talk about that discussion. I don't have all the answers here. Again, we're just kind of posing some questions and kind of see what you guys think. And it certainly, I would argue, could be better for the artists. My experience on a label has garnered me tremendous respect in the community. It has exposed my music on major TV shows, radio, worldwide exposure. That's been great from a promotional perspective on paper. But monetarily, it could be certainly a lot better. And I think that's, or different, right? It's a difference. It depends on who you're talking to, right? Better is subjective. So I just wanted to get that, clear the air on that.
Is this an open discussion?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've had some thought about why or how music might not be free in the future. And one thing I've thought about is why haven't these bigger players tried to change the file container type or a new type of file type for music, where they can encrypt it or even make it degradable when you try to copy it, or not recordable like this new one. Any thoughts on that? Or thought about that?
I might have to
We'll actually get to that. One of the slides is going to talk about an interesting file format posed by a guy called Benji Rogers, which is the .blockchain file format.
Cool.
And we'll actually discuss that. Feel free to sit in the center, guys. All is welcome.
The chair here too.
There's a fix for everything, is what I'm wondering.
Yeah. Now, whether or not the industry will adopt that, that's unknown. All right, cool. So show of hands, who knows about blockchain? Who understands how the technology works? Okay, so that's about half of the people.
We have questions about blockchain, Bill?
I'd like to curb those to the end. Maybe we can park them for the end to get more into the detail about the technology. I'd like to keep tonight's meetup focused on its use case in the music industry, which of course out of that may arise more understanding about the tech. But briefly, as it says there, blockchain is a database that records transactions, and it does so in a way that is transparent and immutable. And it's kind of how it follows here. You create a block of data that gets chained to the blockchain in a way that cannot be tampered with and is transparent, hence blockchain. So just think of it as a really interesting database. Okay, so how does it work? Well, let's say there's two people involved in the transaction, person A and person B. And I want to send some amount of value, okay, through this chain. Well, I put out a request. Let's say I want to send a ticket to Angelo. There's Angelo, so I've requested this transaction. That gets broadcasted out to a bunch of nodes, which are computers that run this algorithm that solve a problem. And the first computer in the node to solve the problem then broadcasts that out to all the other nodes in the system. And they reach a consensus that says, okay, we all agree that I have the funds that I say that I do, and Angelo will receive those funds and verifies the authenticity of that transaction. And once everyone reaches that consensus, a new block is created that then gets chained to the other blocks on the blockchain. Okay, any questions about that? I know I'm glazing over this pretty quick, but does that kind of make sense? So keep this kind of transactional log in your head when we start talking about the music industry. So it will make complete sense why the music industry is a perfect use case for blockchain technology. And is really why I got involved as an artist, as a musician, because I saw this technology, and as I became to understand it more so, the use cases were very clear. Like, oh wow, this would be really great for. Okay. So Ethereum this is where things get interesting. Bitcoin is a blockchain protocol that exchanges digital money, and that's kind of what it does. It's what it's meant for. It's what it does really well. Ethereum is essentially a new internet infrastructure that uses the underlying blockchain technology, but does so in a way that employs smart contracts, which allows you to write in logic into those transactions. So essentially think of it as programmable money. We're creating HelloSugoi because a ticket is essentially a voucher that has rules attached to it, logic attached to it, that can then be programmed and stored on the blockchain. Which is really interesting, and the applications are numerous, certainly for the music industry, we'll find out. It also allows developers to write applications in a more simple way, because the language is abstracted in such a way that makes development, or encourages development, for dApps or distributed apps. Any questions about Ethereum? Right on.
Were you aware of the two Ethereum clones? The Shift's coin is trying to replicate the web blockchain application of Ethereum. Are you familiar with that?
No, I don't.
Talking about the Ethereum Classic, is that what you're talking about?
There's a couple coins that are trying to replicate, they have replicated the algorithm for Ethereum. So they're basically Ethereum, but they're branching off into their whole separate.
Yeah, I mean, Ethereum is open source, so anyone can grab the code, launch their own network, and do what they want. So.
Yeah, and that's kind of encouraged too. Like the open source community is about developing these protocols.
Because I kind of got excited with Ethereum when I noticed they had Mist and the whole web browser application part of it, but they kind of slowed down on the development of that. So there's a couple other ones trying to push that web interface type development to the next level, while Ethereum is doing their.
So I guess you can look into Casper and a couple of, that's the only, that's one comes to mind, but they are working on it, they just haven't released it. It's actually going to be a big rewrite because that whole thing is.
I've been waiting for it.
Yeah, last like a month ago, there was, Vitalik said that there was like 3/4 done.
Oh wow.
So they're going to be, I mean, that's also part of the changing the proof of, the consensus model from proof of work to proof of stake. And alongside that, Metropolis, that's what I was trying to remember. Okay. So you can look up that, and that's part of it. But yes, the code is open source, so anyone can literally do that, fork it and create their own chain for their specific use case if they so want to.
Thank you.
Right. And that's a smart contract, which is a bunch of conditional statements that enable this kind of development to happen so that we can write in applications onto Ethereum that offer more value than just money. Okay, so this is kind of how things, this is a very watered down description of how artists get paid. And I kind of illustrated this on purpose to just show all of the middlemen that are taking money out of the artist's pocket. There's a lot of hands reaching out for money in the music industry. And not nearly enough of it goes back to the artist. And in large part, the problem here is that each of these bubbles, they don't talk to one another. There's no open ledger. There's no way to check the transactions. There's no way to check why an artist gets paid as much as they do. And this also actually takes a lot of time. So to give you an example, I scored a song for the Mindy Project on Fox about a month ago. And I won't get paid for a year for that show. And in order for me to see the accounting, I have to send in a special request, which then takes like sometimes months at a time to get the accounting back for why I got paid as much as I did. So there's not a lot of talking that's happening between these bubbles here. What's up, guys?
How's it going?
How's it going? Do we have enough chairs?
It's a party.
Feel free to cozy up, guys. Let's get comfortable. Right on. Now, the idea of the blockchain is that we can transact peer-to-peer. So there's no need for a centralized government or a bank, or in this case, a performance rights organization, a publisher, or a label to collect on behalf of the musician. And so there's a number of interesting models out there that are exploring that more peer-to-peer payment. We'll talk a little bit about that. So this is kind of how things are now. Siloed databases, it's opaque. And that's what blockchain can do. On a very high level, we can cut out the intermediaries, and the money can go directly to the artist in real time. So, for example, if I get my song on a TV show and that song gets played, I could get paid instantly. I could see that transaction in a transparent way. And I could have my music sitting on a repository where anyone can see that, where it's open and transparent, and the payments happen in real time.
I still think there should be at least one bubble in between, because there's something that's paid for all that infrastructure. All that infrastructure doesn't come free unless you're expecting people to donate servers.
Well, that's interesting you say that. Actually, there's something called Ether, which is essentially the gas that runs the contracts on the Ethereum blockchain, which is a very, very, very small cost. So actually, we don't run the infrastructure of the contracts that live on the blockchain. Angela, do you want to?
Yeah, so I mean, you're right that we could add the miners and stuff like that in the middle, but they're doing all the work, like consensus and whatnot. But if I want to send him something, I'm gonna send him 1 Ether, but I send a little bit more so that the miners have an incentive to actually do that work for me, to actually commit something to the database.
And when he says miners, the miners are the people who keep the network running.
Yeah.
And it's essentially a computer that runs this puzzle, this math puzzle, that validates the authenticity of the transactions.
So if we have a purely Ethereum-based or Solidity-based contract, I don't have to run any sort of infrastructure, because all I did is I paid some amount to put my code onto the Ethereum network, and anyone who has access can call that contract and interact with it without me being involved in any way. I can just write logic that might like skim something or whatever, or allow or disallow certain actions, but I don't have to run that infrastructure. They themselves, if they want to like buy a ticket or they want to move something, they're paying a little bit more on top of what they're committing to.
Yeah, so we don't have that traditional internet client-server relationship. You could just think of the server being distributed amongst thousands, potentially millions of computers, which actually cuts the costs of operating a system like this.
Then how secure is that?
The blockchain it's never been hacked into. It's designed using asymmetric encryption, which also requires a tremendous amount of energy to hack into, or what's called a 51% takeover.
So it kind of parts that word of security. So
Yeah.
the system is only aware of, so when you make it, the way you interact with it, you have to have a public and private key. So as long as your private key is you only have it, the system will reject any sort of forgery by someone else. So for example, even though I know your public address, your public key, I can try to make a transaction as you, but there's a way, a mechanism for it to kind of identify, no, this transaction is not valid because the private key has a checksum of 555, but when I try your private key, I get a checksum of 777, and it goes, hey, they don't match, and it will reject it. So security in the sense of no one can do your action without your private key is being guaranteed. Security in terms of if you write a contract that has a bug in it, and someone siphons off a bunch of money out of it, that's something else, and that's what's kind of being taken care of in the community, or we're trying to develop best practices to not allow someone to kind of do something like that. The biggest example of that would be the DAO, where they had some smart contracts, and there was a slight bug in the way they were kind of doing their work, and someone managed to siphon off Ether out of it. But that wasn't necessarily Ethereum or any cryptography that was wrong. It was the logic of the
The
smart
point of entry to the blockchain,
Yes.
pretty much. And then an analogy is that it wasn't technically hacked. It was the house was locked and they left the keys on the front stoop visible to anyone who's passing by. That's a fitting analogy to what happened with DAO. I don't necessarily believe it was a malicious intent, perhaps, but the points of entry, let's say through an exchange where you would buy money or trade fiat currency for cryptocurrency, those are points of attack as well. But as the system develops and more people use the system, it'll become more robust. And we're already starting to see some of that happen in development right now. So we have a couple examples of specifically where the blockchain can help change how the music industry is currently run and operated. Copyright information. So we have a couple of companies. I believe there was supposed to be a dude from Jack here. Is anyone from Jack? No. They're a UK company that's tackling intellectual property management on the blockchain, which is really interesting. If anyone here has laptops, can look them up. Ujo is kind of doing something similar. I'm not representative of these companies, so I can't really answer questions on behalf of them, but there are a couple of examples of where blockchain could apply to the music industry. Yeah?
Are they basically managing master and sync rights? Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, well, for example, Ujo is developing this really interesting platform where you as an artist, myself as a songwriter, can publish or upload a song in a specific file format to their platform. And then anyone that wants to buy that song or use that song, license it for purposes in a television show or a commercial, can actually download it from that platform. And inside that file format is broken down who the songwriters are, what percentage that they get, all sorts of interesting metadata. As a matter of fact, I believe Imogen Heap was the first example. She released a song through the platform. And you could write in even what coffee was, or what brand coffee was being consumed that morning.
So do you preset your fees Or does it lead to negotiations of fees?
It could lead to well, that's where you